Education and spreading the word about local growing are key to instilling a healthy understanding of food cultivation in our youth. Especially now with the rapid growth of technology and the digitization of media, maintaining a connection to our human ancestry and a closeness to the earth, as it were, is becoming more pivotal. One local organization that is making a strong impact is the Lettuce Harvest Foundation. Their linking of environmental care with food production is evident in their urban farming, workshops, and school support activities.
My name is Zoe Beynon-MacKinnon, and I'm one of the founders and executive director of Lettuce Harvest Foundation. So we are a nonprofit organization based here in East Vancouver, and the work that we do is about trying to build together the intersections of climate justice and food justice with having a real impact here in our community. So my background in food justice, I have an academic background in environmental politics and economics, and I really got involved in the food side of things when I started studying and understanding more about the major interconnections that we see globally between a food system that is very detrimental not only for the environment at pretty well every stage of production to consumption, but also really harmful for our bodies, and the interconnection between a food system that produces way too much food that's not good for us and the lack of access that most people have to food. So my introduction to this was extreme in food insecurity as a student, as well as studying this at the same time. And I met some other young people with similar interests, and we started Lettuce Harvest as an attempt to not only address local food insecurity in our neighborhood and to make organic, local and really fresh produce more available, but also to raise more awareness about climate justice, the impact that our diet has on climate, and really understanding how our food system has this huge impact not only on our own health, but the health of everything around us. So last year being our first full season, we definitely were able to learn a lot from the things that we didn't see coming as potential issues. There's a number of for-profit farms in Vancouver that have front yards as their main location of farming, but we're the first non-for-profit that's working with community members to teach them how to grow food in these locations. So there's a number of barriers that we weren't expecting to come up, and we're really, really excited to address those this year and have an even more productive season than last year. So last year when we came in, it was a lot of time digging up grass. It was a lot of time working with volunteers to try to teach simultaneously to doing the growing. So this year we're excited to be able to hire a full-time farm manager and farm hands to really help make sure all the labor is getting done and all the plants are as happy as possible, so we can also put our energy adequately into teaching people what we're doing, how we're doing it well, instead of trying to do both at the same time, which we found was a little bit of a challenge at times. We're also really excited to have really detailed farm plans this year and growing plans this year that should be able to see an even greater harvest than we saw last year. So the 400 pounds that we harvested last year, that was with all volunteers doing the labor in the yards and a very makeshift watering schedule. So this year we're excited to see that really increase as much as possible as we put our best foot forward in the gardening and in the garden maintenance. We're also really excited to be able to offer private and public workshops this time this year. So we have a number of workshops available for the public that we'll be announcing over the coming year. But we also are offering private workshops for businesses, schools, and anyone who wants their workplace or their organization to learn more about the intersection of food justice and gardening, and how we can use these tools to help create a more just and climate-friendly world. So one of the biggest barriers that we face as an organization is making sure that we have adequate funding to offer really good and robust education opportunities to our members, the public, and also get the love that the gardens need to really thrive all summer long. And one of the reasons we have this issue is that we don't really fit into the realm of just food security or food aid organizations. So these are things like the food bank or places that immediately provide food to folks that need it most. And we don't just fit into an organization that does climate justice awareness or climate justice work. So for us, we see ourselves as a climate justice and food aid organization, because we know that the work that we're doing not only is providing food to folks that need it this year, even if might not be immediately, so we have to grow the food and go through the whole process of the growing season. But we're also doing food justice work by being able to mitigate and adapt to the climate future that we have. So when we talk about climate justice and food, there's two main realms that we discuss. So adaptation is the one, which is how are we as a community adapting to the climate future that we have ahead of us. So we know that climate change is happening. We know that our whole environment is going to be changing because of it. So how are we preparing ourselves to better take care of ourselves and our neighbors in that future? Growing food, having food available to us is one of the best ways that we can make sure that we can take care of ourselves, our neighbors, and our loved ones as a more volatile future becomes underway. And mitigation, the second climate topic that we have to cover, is how are we reducing the impact on the climate that we're having today to reduce our need to mitigate in the future. So a lot of topics that we talk about in climate justice, a lot of folks like to focus on mitigation on top of the adaptation part. How do we stop climate justice, or how do we stop the climate crisis from happening? The reality is that we can't really stop it at this point. We're already seeing the impacts with our forest fires, our droughts, but we do have a potential to slow it down and to reduce our impact every day. So by eating a more plant-based diet, by eating more locally, and by eating foods that we're eating all of the foods from and reducing our waste and our inputs into the food system, we're able to reduce our footprint through fossil fuels and different emissions that go through the food production process, and really help remove ourselves from that cycle, which is really contributing to the climate crisis as well. There are also often a lot of comments about younger generations and our apathy or lack of awareness of world issues. And I would argue in my experience that younger folks are often the ones that are the most aware and the most willing to change their lifestyles for a better future, because we've been raised not only with the knowledge of what is happening, but with the notion that it's our responsibility and our necessity to be the change. So if we don't have a future available to us. So when we see the forest fires, when we see the smoke coming in and we see the oceans rising, it's not 20 years that we have available, it's potential children we have, it's our whole lifestyle, it's the homes that we grew up in. And we know that we're going to have to move, we're going to have to change if we want any of it to be around for ourselves or our children. So.
Another local association that is inspiring and informing the community, particularly the young, is the Kiwassa Neighbourhood House. Situated next to a school and park, they have seniors programs, children's programs, and a learning garden that is designed to enlighten people on local growing. In the time that I was there for Volunteer Day, I discovered a little bit about pruning, planting, and overall garden maintenance.
Well, the Kiwassa Learning Garden was started, I'd say, over a decade ago now, and it's been used as a place for a lot of programming for kids and for a lot of programming for adults too. Some of the produce that we grow here is actually given to the food programs, which I help to run, and put into children's snacks and to meals and to seniors' lunches and to all sorts of different things. And then part of it is just the educational component of trying to return people's knowledge base to the earth towards these skill sets that have been lost through industrialization and the global commodity chain. I'm originally from Saskatoon, but then Nova Scotia. And I've been involved in food systems, I guess, from early age, but I first got involved in food cooperatives. In university, I realized that we had an unjust food system in my university, and so I worked alongside other students to create our own food cooperative. And then we moved to another school in Halifax, where I'm from, and we actually took over a food system through a boycott of the food service provider, and the Students' Union started running its own food service, which had fair employment practices, purchasing practices, and was engaged in the community. And so those are my roots, but I've also worked in terms of local food supply, worked as a cook for quite a few years, and as a farmer. In this garden you can see that we've got a lot of different plants that exist throughout the year. So garlic are biennials, and we planted them in the fall, now it's February, and so they're doing pretty good. We're going to do some fertilizing of them and get them nice and big to harvest in July. And then over here we've got huckleberry and blueberry, which we actually just planted this past year. So hopefully we'll get a nice harvest of them over the course of the next couple of years. And then they'll really start to boom after the 4 or 5 year mark. So we're planning for the future. This is a work party that's aimed at trying to build community around the Learning Garden and to build community around the Vancouver Urban Food Forest and to create a space for people to come outside and enjoy the early spring weather and get planting so that we all learn a bit more. We've got a workshop shortly that'll be about pruning trees, and then soon we're going to be planting some other things on March 15th. So right now we're clearing the ground so that all that can happen.
I guess I started gardening. What was the first garden I was ever involved with? Probably, at my daycare, I think, when I was like 7 or 8. I remember we were going to make a pizza with all this vegetables we grew, but the garden didn't end up that great, so I think we just had like a salad or something. But I think there's always been people in my life here and there who like are involved in gardening, and then I actually moved to Kansas as a kid, and we had more land then, and my mom started growing a garden, a really big one. Like we kind of made our whole yard into a garden. I remember being so angry because I would we had a rototiller, and I would just till that thing in the summer, and it's 100 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm a dirty American. I use Fahrenheit, but we So anyhow, in through that, there was the seeds planted, in my brain about gardening in general. And as I started learning more about kind of the destruction of the environment, and there's actually these big problems, and learning about restorative agriculture and permaculture as a solution to that, kind of changing the way we think about food and moving back more to indigenous practices of land use and more of a symbiotic relationship with the earth instead of just taking from it.
I got started with Vancouver Urban Food Forest Foundation, just moving to Vancouver and going to some harvest festival things at the Astoria Garden, actually, is where I met Marie Pierre, who, I don't know if she's in charge of VEF, but she has a very powerful presence, and I've been really interested in permaculture before even moving to Vancouver, so I was really excited to get involved with an organization that was working on a project that way. And Omri here at Kiwassa is a big project leader, and so he sends emails out, and I come help because I really enjoy the gardening experience in general, and I think there's a lot of powerful opportunities here to create community connection and restorative practices for people to learn how to engage with the earth better and their food. And it's something that we kind of lost as a culture. And so for me, regaining some of those skills is, for myself, one primary purpose of me being here.
These buds are going to grow, that's going to grow straight that way. This is going to go straight up. We don't need that one. This is going to go straight up. We don't need that one. We're looking for buds that grow side to side. That one's going to go to the side. This one's growing straight out. We don't need that. We follow it all the way back. Cut all the way back. There's one crisscrossing. Don't need that one. We'll cut that one off. This one's crisscrossing. We take the oldest one. This one is the oldest one here. This is the younger one. We sacrifice that one. Give that space. These ones going straight up, we don't need. Just gonna cut.
Oh wow. Okay.
It's just getting in the way.
Big one.
Now that we've seen the educational and environmental aspects of local growing, next time we're going to look at the non-vegetable aspects of local food, because we have to remember that it was a varied diet that included animal protein that enabled humans to develop the large brain and the endurance to become the dominant species on the planet.
summer long. Lying here with you just reminds me of the hazy view, and there won't be that much to do, but I hear your siren song and taste that nectar all summer long.